Hello, I'm Dr. Sam, this is Dr. Sam's Health, and today I'm going to wrap up my epic journey and travel diet vlog. In the first two videos I've been talking about my travels. In the first one I was talking about my travel over North America, and in the second one I spoke about my trip to Europe and Israel, and today I would like to talk about my travel diet. My trip was quite lengthy, it was 25 days long, and my goal was not to gain any weight during my trip. I used my travel diet rules that helped me to achieve my goal. Actually, I've lost a couple of pounds. So there are 10 rules that I would like to share with you, and I hope that you'll find them helpful. And I'll throw in an extra post-travel diet rule in the end of this video. So let's dive in. Rule number one, don't stress too much over your diet. You're already stressed when you're traveling. You already have certain goals specific to your trip. Whether it's a business trip, you have to present something, you have to meet with people, or it's a vacation, you want to relax and have good time. I don't want you thinking about your diet to stress you too much and to take away from your experiences. Traveling is stressful on its own, and when you add additional stress, when you are worrying about your diet, about your nutrition, your body produces too much cortisol. Cortisol is our main stress hormone, and its function is to prepare your body for some sort of a flight or fight reaction. Which means that your body and this hormone, they do not care about your body composition. They do not care about your weight loss or weight gain. What it cares about is the availability of nutrients for your body to react according to the situation. Cortisol has a number of effects on our body composition and our metabolism, but I will mention the two most critical ones. First of all, it's very catabolic, which means that in order to mobilize all these nutrients and to increase their levels in your bloodstream, it will stop protein synthesis and it will increase protein breakdown. So being stressed and having high levels of cortisol pretty much negates your attempts to build muscle. To make things worse, chronically elevated levels of cortisol are associated with central adiposity. So essentially, if you are traveling and you are stressed, you are losing muscle and gaining fat. So it is absolutely essential not to stress too much when you are traveling. That leads us to the second rule, which is sleep well. When we sleep, our bodies normalize everything, and our bodies produce lots of growth hormone, which is important for muscle building and fat burning. In addition to that, when we're traveling, we're tired, we're sleep deprived, our decision-making process becomes very erratic, and it becomes very easy to slip up on your diet and have some foods that you normally wouldn't. That leads us to the third rule, which is stay hydrated. I know that there are a lot of people who are completely obsessed with staying hydrated. They're walking around, having their bottles of water, drinking constantly. I'm not one of them, and I'm not that heavily focused on hydration, but it's very easy to become dehydrated when you travel, and sometimes our brain has difficulties differentiating between thirst and hunger. So simply by consuming enough water and electrolytes, you will be able to control your thirst and your hunger, and you will be able to stay true to your diet. It will be much easier. So the next rule, rule number 4, is to minimize your alcohol intake or completely avoid it. If you're a drinker, you will likely have some alcohol while traveling. You might have a dinner with your friends, you might want to try some wine with your local authentic dishes in local restaurants, you might want to have a beer or a cocktail on the beach, you might have a party, and so on and so on. There are so many opportunities to have alcohol, but I want you to remember a couple of things. First of all, alcohol will dehydrate you. The second thing you should know is that alcohol is very calorific. Each gram of ethanol contains 7 kilocalories. It's almost like a liquid fat. And the third and most important thing you have to know about alcohol, that it will cloud your judgment. Every time you have alcohol, you are more likely to have another sip of alcohol, another glass here and there, and you are more likely to slip up on your diet because your decision-making process is already impaired. So please be very careful with alcohol in general, and especially if you're traveling, because you're already tired, sleep deprived, your circadian rhythm is broken, you're already likely dehydrated. So please keep your alcohol consumption to a minimum or avoid it whatsoever. Okay, our next rule, rule number 5, is to try to plan your meals whenever possible. I know it's easier said than done. In many cases, you go to some locations and you don't know anything about them. You always want to try some local foods there. And in many cases, you won't know exactly where you will eat, what will be the menu options, and so on. But In my personal experience, I realized that in many cases you can actually check the nutrients, check the menus of the restaurants you're gonna eat at, and you can plan accordingly. You can go through the meals that they offer, go through the dishes, and choose the ones that fit your diet the most. I know for sure that it's almost impossible to plan everything. In the vast majority of travels, you will end up in a situation when none of the meals that you have access to will fit your diet. You might be invited to a party, you might be invited to a dinner, you might end up in a restaurant where not a single item on the menu will fit your personal nutritional plan, and accordingly we have rule number 6. Be ready for unexpected. Have a contingency plan. That's all it takes. Just know that for sure during your travel you will end up in a situation when the only food choices you have completely do not meet your nutritional plan. So what can you do to limit the detrimental effects of these foods? You can skip them, you can not go to a party or to a dinner or wherever. You can have some sort of a portion control mechanism in place. You can count your calories and limit their consumption to a certain level. You can also consider either working out before having this meal, or if it was like really unexpected, skipping a meal next day or having a workout next day to compensate for excess caloric intake the day before. And our next rule, rule number 7, is pretty much an extension of this contingency plan. Stay away from free food. I cannot tell you how many times I ended up being in a situation when there is a lot of free food and none of these food items meet my personal nutritional plan. There is food on airplanes, there are quite a few buffets here and there where you can have a snack effectively for free, and almost never these foods are good for you. My personal pet peeve is conferences. Every time I go there, there is some sort of a buffet where they would feed you something. There are always some sort of a carbohydrate-laden food, such as like donuts, croissants, some snacks, some sandwiches. The healthiest thing there is usually yogurt, but it's still not exactly what I would normally have on my diet. So for me, it's very tempting not to have these foods. But what I want you to do is to be aware of these foods and to resist the temptation. Have a contingency plan and prefer not to have them at all. To paraphrase this rule, no free food is good. Actually, I have a funny story to share with you. It's rather an exception to this rule. So when I was traveling, I was flying from Israel and I had a couple of hours there in the airport. I was actually quite hungry and actually sleep deprived, and I really wanted to have some food. I was debating whether I should have a snack or not. So in the end of the day, I decided to have a snack that would be meeting my nutritional requirements perfectly, and that something turned out to be an Israeli meat platter. So pretty much a platter with different kinds of meat, very authentic and very nice. It was rather expensive, but it turned out that I didn't have to pay for it. The reason for that was that the fellow traveler, Davidson from Mad for Miles, I didn't know him then, we kind of get acquainted while having this meal. He had some sort of a point system that would allow him to cover certain travel expenses. So he had plenty of these travel points and he could either use them or lose them. And he chose to cover my snack with his points, which was a very nice gesture. Thank you, Zach, for that. And it's a good example of a free meal not being a bad one. But again, it's rather an exception to the rule. So my next rule, rule number 8, is to try to fast. Try to extend your periods between meals, preferably have one a day. Intermittent fasting, as we know, has a number of positive effects on your metabolism and your body composition. So even if you cannot control your nutrient intake when you're eating, you can actually control the timing of your food intake. And if you have one meal a day, it will mean effectively that, first of all, you cannot consume huge amounts of food in just one sitting. So likely you will more or less be close to your daily caloric intake, recommended one. But most importantly, between the meals, your body will normalize everything. It will use up the nutrients that you are consuming during your meals, and it will adjust its hormonal balance in such a way that you will not be effectively gaining weight. We're approaching the end. Rule number 9, be mindful. So in many cases when we are attending some parties, some dinners, we're trying different local foods, we kind of keep track of what we are eating. But one important thing you can do, and I would actually suggest making it a habit, is stopping during your meals relatively frequently and just asking yourself whether you are hungry or not. Are you satiated or not? And that will have a very positive effect on your relationship with food in general. Effectively, you're practicing mindfulness. Traveling or not, I would highly recommend doing it every time you are enjoying your meal, and it will help you not to overeat and not to overindulge. Okay, the final rule, rule number 10. Move a lot. It's very easy to get into some sort of a caloric surplus when we're traveling, and it's very difficult to work out, to stick to your regular workout routine. Unless you're a long distance runner, maybe you can step out and have a jog, but for a person like myself who likes to work out in the gym, it's kind of problematic. Plus, in many cases, your circadian rhythm is broken, you are tired, you are sleepy, there are multiple other factors. In many cases, I just don't feel like working out when I'm traveling, and I don't even dream about that. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to move a lot. Go do some sightseeing, try to minimize the use of public transportation or taxis. If something is located not too far away, go for a walk. Have a half an hour long walk. Couple of hours a day of walking will burn some calories, will help you to clear your mind and prepare for your meetings and to actually enjoy the environment, your vacation, if you're on vacation, much better. So these were my 10 rules for travel diet, and I promised you a bonus one. Here we go. Every time you travel, every time you plan your trip, plan for a recovery period after your trip. When you're coming back home, first of all, try not to have any food in the evening, or have very, very modest meal that would actually meet your nutritional requirements, and sleep overnight, weigh yourself, check your progress in terms of your weight loss or weight gain, and restart your diet very aggressively, very intensively. Do not let your travel sleeps to kind of spill over into your regular life. And that trick is very important for me. I always do it when I return from my travels. I always have at least a week of very strict diet, and that helps a lot. So that was it for today. I hope that my 10 rules and an extra one will help you to achieve your goals. They definitely helped me to achieve mine. I actually lost a couple of pounds over the course of my lengthy travel. I will be working on my next videos. I've got a couple of ideas in mind right now. And if you like my videos, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, check out my website, drsamshealth.com. Leave comments, ask questions. I'm always happy to interact with you and to answer your questions to see what is interesting for you. All the best, and I'll see you in my next video.